Simply Explained, The Century of the Self. 5-part series for quick learning or a lesson to put you to sleep. The Century of Self, Episode 4. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. This episode covers a counterattack against the controlled, conformist society of the 1950s and how the system ultimately absorbed this rebellion. The 1950s, a complex and dynamic period in American history, were marked by economic growth, cultural conformity, and emerging social movements. Factors that laid the groundwork for the transformative changes that would occur in the following decades as society began to grapple with issues of equality, freedom, and personal identity. The 1950s also saw the rise of the teenager. The term teenager became widely popular following World War II. Before this time, the distinct social category of adolescence was not widely recognized in the same way, with youth generally considered either children or young adults. The popularization of the term and the social concept was driven by several key factors: economic prosperity, advertising and marketing, and cultural catalysts. The post-World War II economic boom gave young people more disposable income than previous generations. Advertisers began to target this new consumer group explicitly. The rise of youth-oriented entertainment, especially music, helped teenagers develop a distinct, recognizable culture that separated them from their parents' generation. Sexual revolution. Wilhelm Reich, a Freudian who argued that sexual repression was the root of fascism and neurosis. He believed that freeing the orgasm was a key to freeing humanity. His ideas, though marginalized, became influential to the next generation. Along with Alfred Kinsey's groundbreaking studies in the late 1940s and early 1950s, their theories revealed that sexual behaviors were more varied than publicly acknowledged and influenced the 1960s counterculture and figures like Norman Mailer and William S. Burroughs. Women's sexual liberation movements began to also take shape. The Feminine Mystique is a book by American author Betty Friedan, widely credited with sparking the second wave of feminism in the United States. In 1957, Friedan was asked to conduct a survey of her former Smith College classmates for their 15th anniversary reunion. She found that many of them were unhappy with their lives as housewives, prompting her to begin research for the Feminine Mystique. Discussions regarding women's pleasure and sexual autonomy started to enter the public consciousness. Counterculture of the 1960s. A new movement emerged as a response to political, social, and economic issues. Major influences included the civil rights movement and the growing disillusionment with post-World War II consumerism. Many young people expressed distrust for authority and openly challenged institutions. Influenced by the civil rights movement, counterculture activists fueled anti-war protests and the feminist and gay liberation movements. The anti-war and civil rights activism of the counterculture had a significant impact on politics, helping to force the end of the Vietnam War and accelerate civil rights legislation. The movement was most famously associated with the hippie. The hippie movement was the most visible expression of the 1960s counterculture, using alternative lifestyles, fashion, and music to reject the materialism and conformity of mainstream American society. The hippie movement stood in stark opposition to the establishment age term for the prevailing social and political power structure. The counterculture stood in direct opposition to the rigid, conventional values of the 1950s, which were viewed as materialistic and conformist. The 1960s counterculture significantly influenced subsequent generations and movements. Its ideals of freedom, equality, and artistic expression continue to resonate, shaping contemporary culture and activism, from environmentalism to LGBTQ+ rights. The political backlash it provoked also fueled the rise of conservative movements in the 1970s that are still present today. Co-option by business. Edward Bernays' work laid the foundation for marketing and public relations. His understanding of consumer psychology and media dynamics changed how businesses communicate with their audiences. In a crucial twist, business co-opted the language of the counterculture. The line between business communication and propaganda had become increasingly blurred. By the 1950s, psychologists began studying consumer motives, perceptions, and emotions. Market researchers realized that the desire for self-expression was a new, powerful market to exploit. Marketing in the 1950s was a transformative period, as marketers started realizing that purchasing decisions are emotional as much as rational. Companies began to use propaganda techniques to craft their brand identity and communicate values. Businesses deliberately created needs and desires. They began gathering, analyzing, and interpreting data related to products, consumers, and competitors. Bernays' propaganda tactics raised ethical questions about manipulation and transparency. While he believed in the potential of propaganda for social good, critics argued that his methods sometimes deceived the public. His methods were effective. Critics questioned the long-term implications of promoting products through propaganda. Key figure: Abraham Maslow. His hierarchy of needs and concept of self-actualization provided the perfect bridge. Businesses began selling products not as symbols of status, but as tools for personal growth, freedom, and individuality. The anti-capitalist rebellion was repackaged and sold back to the rebels. Thanks for listening. Remember, what you let into your world will affect what comes out of your world. Pay attention to what you see and understand what you are doing. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.